So good morning. So we gathered here for 5 days, which is a long weekend, end of August. Around the study of a text called The King of Aspiration Prayers of Noble Excellent Activity. In Tibetan it's called Sampo Chepe Menlam. Meaning the aspiration of virtuous conduct. So before we start with that subject, I would like you to join me in taking refuge, followed by generation of bodhisattva, followed by the praise to Manjushri.
Dewa tamba tam mindra war churichi Nirin chadan tan charve tan yom chenpo la nebar churichi Simche tamche dewa tan devi jutan dembar churichi Dungara tan dungara chi jutan chawar churichi Dungara mebe dewa tamba tan mindra war churichi Nirin chadan tan charbe tan yom chenpo la nebar churichi Chom den den jambe yang lai chan tsai loi kange lo dren dren nye dren dar nye dar nam dar ram sarve chi nye tun gun chi shen si chi ni che to kar le pam zin kanda si be tsun ra ma ri mun tu mo dong ra che sarve Zhōzhō gōng lā pūjī dar zhēn yān lā zhō jū yāng dēn sōng. Zhō dar chē zhō nyō mō nye lōng lē jē chā zhō zhō zē jēn. Mā rī mū sē dōng rā nyō gō chī nye chūn zē rā zhē nām. Dune Tajen Saju Tarsun Yuntena Luzo Gerse Tuvu Ku Chuta Chuta Chuni Jendre Dalum Seren Jambe Yala Dun Seden Chuje Chera Visreche Dalu Temo Mumbarab Sarani Kadan Tenju Shunlu Toba Ye Lo Dru Bo Be Na Wa Tsa Tu Sor.
So, in the past years, we studied a lot together. We studied the Madhyamagga teaching through Nagarjuna's text, and then we studied the Heart Sutra, the Prajna Paramita Shidaya Sutta. So here, this last text that we study together is sometimes introduced in a collection of 4 other texts, meaning a collection of 5 texts called the 5 King Sutras. So it seems that this name, this designation, is linked to the fact that those texts are short, and those texts were recited daily, maybe by the first Buddhist kings of Tibet, and therefore we called it the 5 King Sutras. So anyway, those are 5 short texts that themselves belong to a bigger corpus, a bigger set of texts. So for example, the Heart Sutra, the Prajna Paramita Shidaya Sutra, for example, is linked to what we call the view. The so-called view, or the discernment of reality. It is sometimes also linked, so-called linked to mind, and it is the shortest version of the Prajnaparamita set of scriptures. So the longest version of Prajnaparamita is about 100,000 stanzas for the longest version. So that's it for Sherabki Ningpo. Then we have the Dakayeshe Atachyana, that is associated to activity, and especially or let's say it's linked to Buddha's speech, Buddha's instruction concerning the practice to accomplish at the moment of death. So here it's called the wisdom, Yeshe in Tibetan, primordial wisdom. Sometimes it's translated like that. So meaning primordial wisdom at the moment of death. So that sutra is about how to recognize the original state of mind and remain in that at the moment of death. So it's linked to speech. So linked to the Buddha's teaching. And it will be the shortest version of the Nirvana Sutra. And the Nirvana Sutra has 100,000 testaments. Not stanzas, but testaments. Then we have Dorje Nampa Jomma, which is a text linked to purification, washing away. And it's a version coming from Ratnakuta Sutta, which is a sutra that has 100,000 different Buddhas' names, and it is linked to the body of enlightenment. And then we have the text that we're going to study now, Sampo Chope Melam, Padasha Vedana in Sanskrit. That is mostly about prayers or wishes. It comes from Buddhavatamsaka Sutta, where there are about 100,000 prayers or wishes, and it is linked to Tendel, favorable condition, creating favorable condition. And then we have Apatideshana, Tongsha, meaning the Sutra of confessing misdeeds, linked to Avankara Sutta, where are taught 100,000 means to tame afflictions, demons, and which is linked here to activity. The Buddha's activity. So this is the practice so-called 35 Buddha practice. That's the confession. A confession that is done in front of 35 Buddhas. So those are called the 5 King Sutras. So nowadays in French we have a few translations of those. And His Holiness the 17th Karmapa recommended that practitioners here in the West and especially in France familiarize themselves with those texts, study them. And this is why it was requested to me to introduce you here in Dhagpo during those few days about the Padachari Paditrana Sutra, the Sampo Chepe Menlam in Tibetan, that we're going to try to study together. So this text here, if we want to understand where it belongs to in the Buddhist literature, is, as we saw, associated to Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra. So that sutra, the sutra, meaning the Sutra of Buddha's ornaments. It's a very big sutra. So it's a very big sutra with different parts, presented themselves as independent sutras within the big sutras. For example, the Dashabhumika Sutra. And there is one text in particular that is interesting for us here, which is part of the last part of Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra. And in Sanskrit it's called Gandavyuha Sutra. And we are so lucky in France now to have a full translation of that, translated under the title of the Sutra of the Entrance in Absolute Dimension, we could say in English, thanks to Patrick Carré. You can see it, so it's available in French. It's a very good one, and Trinlay Rinpoche recommends to read that if you understand French. So the Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra was first in Sanskrit, was a text in Sanskrit language. And then we got a Tibetan translation. So in Sanskrit and in Tibetan both, we only have the text. There is no extra text linked to that. No commentary linked to that. So that sutra is read, commented, quoted by both Tibetan and Indian masters, but there is no exegesis. It is especially important in China. The Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra was translated 3 times. In Chinese, there are 3 translations of it. So here, the French translation that we have comes mostly from the second translation, considered by Patrick Carré, the translator, as the best. And he selected that translation for his French translation. So the Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra in China gave birth to many different commentaries and to the Huayan school of thought. So that sutra, based on the Tibetan sutra Do Palpoche, Do Sanche Palpoche, or so-called in Sanskrit Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra. And in Chinese, I think it was translated by the flower ornamentation. Maybe it's in English, it's called the Flower Ornament Sutra. I think it's a full translation of Avatamsaka. And in fact, here, the flower, the word comes from, or flowery, comes from the Chinese, meaning the ornament or the ornament of enlightenment. So here, Do Palpoche, so that sutra, Do Palpoche, its last part it's the Gandavyuha Sutra. Dompo Kepeto in Tibetan. The Tibetan title is Dompo Kepeto. So here the translation that we're gonna use belongs from the Chinese title. So the sutra, the entrance to absolute dimension, we could say. Entering the absolute dimension. So here it's only available in French. So here the first big volume is a very beautiful edition. So the entrance to absolute dimension tells Sudana Kumara's journey, who's a bodhisattva that is going to meet about 53 masters that are going to teach him the entering the absolute dimension, as the title says. And the last chapter takes place with Samantabadhra Buddha, and this is where we find the entering to the sphere of inconceivable dimension. And this is where we find the stanzas that we usually recite in the King of Aspiration prayer of noble, excellent activity. So there are 63 stanzas here. So our text of the day comes from that part of the sutra. So that's its situation, and I really recommend you to read it, to study it. There are beautiful illustrations. They are the decoration that we find in Borobudur temple. It's a construction from the 9th century. That is a very big monument with different sculpture. It's a very big stupa. They illustrate Buddha's different life, the Jatakas, the so-called Jataka. And the superior part, the upper part, illustrates the Gandavyuha and the journey of Sudana, that hero. So here in the book we can see those different decorations. And they illustrate Sudana's journey. We can see a picture of those different engravings. So there is a peculiar understanding that was developed here concerning absolute dimension, emptiness, and it was partially the source of Zen thought. Maybe first it was Chan and then the Zen thought. So there are various important points. For example, introduction to Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha, and then the access to ultimate dimension, direct access to ultimate dimension. So here we talk about the Supitist approach in opposition to the gradual approach. The sudden enlightenment. So all those presentations come from that very important sutra. So here we can look a little bit. We have different translations in French. So I was given a translation that you are probably using. I think you have it. So first we can look to the translation you have. So we can have a look together, maybe read it together. So for those who cannot read Tibetan or Sanskrit or the Chinese translation, you can of course refer to the French or English translation, but I think it's good here to look, to compare different translations, not to grasp too much on one translation, comparing them. And so for that translation, I'm going to use the Bodhipath Buddhist Center translation. So here, Trinlay Rinpoche is using the booklet we made. So its name in Tibetan is Papa Zampo Chepe Mulam Ki Jiebo. So here, so in French they chose the Queen. They call it Queen, but in English we have King, the King of Aspiration prayers. So in Tibetan it's Gyalbo. It corresponds to the term Gyebo. So in all of the worlds, in all 10 directions, reside the Tathagatas of past, present, and future. Before each and every one of these lions among men, I bow down joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of wishes of excellent conduct, each Buddha evoked becomes manifest. So here I'm using the Bodhipass Bodhisattva translation for the English, which is different than Trinlay Rinpoche's translation from Dhagpo. So now Trinlay Rinpoche wants to look to another one. So there is another French translation. So in Dhagpo we use La Reine des Prières de Conduite Excellente. That's the version we are using. So then we have another translation on Lotsawa House, which is a very nice website. You can have a look there. You have nice translations. So there is. So now Trinlay Rinpoche is reading that translation from Lotsawa House. And obviously no one is using that one right now. So then, of course, the same in English. We have various different translations. So, and then we have the French translation in the book itself. We have here. So maybe first we're gonna read together the whole prayer in using the translation given by Dhagpo Kagyu here. So I'm going to read the Bodhipass version, okay? I'm going to use that one. So I bow down before the noble youth, Lord Manjushri. In all of the worlds, in all 10 directions, reside the Tathagatas of past, present, and future. Before each and every one of these lions among men, I bow down joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of wishes of excellent conduct, each Buddha evoked becomes manifest. With as many bodies as atoms in the universe, I bow down deeply to the victorious ones. Atop one particle, as many Buddhas as particles are settled amidst bodhisattvas, the spiritual heirs. Thus, Dharmadhatu, the entire sphere of being, abounds with the Buddhas that I have envisioned. Using every tone of a multitude of melodies, I river them with boundless oceans of acclaim. Singing the praises of those gone to bliss, I honor your qualities, O victorious ones. Sumptuous flowers, beautiful garlands, precious parasols, fine cymbals and bombs, radiant lamps, and the most fragrant incense, I offer them to you, O victorious ones. Such wonderful arrays, all perfectly presented, exquisite apparel and sweet-smelling perfume, jars of scented power, piled high like a mountain, I offer them to you, O victorious ones. These vast and superlative offerings express my confidence in all of the Buddhas. With the strength of conviction in excellent conduct, I bow and present them to the victorious ones. Whatever misdeeds I may have committed through body and speech, as well as through mind, all outcomes of passion and anger and ignorance, I openly disclose each and every one. I rejoice in each occurrence of merit produced by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of all 10 directions, by Pratika Buddhas, by those training on the path, by Arhats beyond training, and by every single being. O lanterns who illumine words in all 10 directions, by way of the progressive stages of awakening, you have become Buddhas, free from attachment. Protectors, I entreat you all, turn the supreme wheel. Palms join, I beseech those among you who mean to manifest the state beyond suffering, for as many eons as there are atoms in the universe, remain for the welfare and happiness of all beings. Whatever small merits have I been gathered here, through prostrating, offering and disclosing, rejoices, entreating and beseeching, I dedicate it all for the sake of enlightenment. May the Buddha of the past and those dwelling presently in the worlds of the 10 directions be honored by offerings. May those yet to come swiftly fulfill their aspiration and attain Buddhahood through the stages of awakening. Wherever there are world systems in the 10 directions, may they, in their great number, become perfectly pure. May these universes abound in victorious ones, who have come before the tree of enlightenment, accompanied by bodhisattvas, their spiritual heirs. May each and every one of the manifold beings of the 10 directions always be happy and healthy. May all beings find true purpose in the Dharma, and in harmony with this, may their hopes be fulfilled. May I carry out of the many forms of enlightened conduct and remember past lives when experiencing each new one. During each successive death, transmigration, and rebirth, may I always embrace religious life and renounce. Following the example of the victorious ones, may I fully accomplish excellent conduct, and may my moral behavior be flawless and pure. May I conduct myself faultlessly in all situations. May I communicate the Buddha Dharma in every language known to sentient beings, the tongue of gods, nagas, jinn, trolls, and all languages spoken by humankind. Gentle and wise, may I apply myself to the transcendent qualities of the paramitas, while never losing sight of awakening mind. As for all harmful acts that have resulted in veils, may they be entirely purified without exceptions. May I be liberated from negative karma, disturbing emotions, and the actions of maras. Wherever there are world systems and beings, may I be like the lotus, not clung to by water, and the sun and the moon, unhindered in the sky. Throughout each of the realms in every direction, may I pacify all suffering of the unfortunate realms. May I establish all beings in happiness, and may I be of assistance to everyone. May I perfect the practice of enlightened conduct in accord with the various lifestyles of beings. May I fully exemplify excellent conduct and continue to do so during all future eons. May I always be accompanied by those friends whose practice and conduct resemble my own. With regard to our body, speech, and mind, may all of our actions and prayer be as one. May I always encounter companions who exemplify excellent conduct and have my well-being at heart. May I never let these teachers down. May I always directly perceive the victorious ones, the protectors, and their entourage of bodhisattvas. Throughout all future eons, may I never grow weary of honoring them with remarkably vast offerings. May I uphold the genuine Dharma of the Buddhas and make enlightened conduct fully manifest. May I be perfectly trained in excellent conduct, wholeheartedly continuing for eons to come. Through all my existences, be they within samsara, may I acquire inexhaustible merit and wisdom. May these become a never-ending treasure of qualities, methods, superior knowledge, samadhi, and liberation. Atop one particle, there are as many realms as atoms. In each pure realm, more Buddhas than can be imagined reside amidst bodhisattvas, their spiritual heirs. May I see them and emulate their enlightened activity. Likewise, in absolutely every direction, within the space of the tip of one hair, there are oceans of Buddhas of past, present, and future, oceans of pure realms and oceans of eons. May I fully take part in this enlightened activity. The sound of one instance of the Buddha's speech, with its ocean of qualities, holds the pure range of harmonious expressions of all victorious ones. It is the very melody of each being's understanding. May I always engage in the speech of the Buddhas. All victorious ones of the past, present, and future fully turn the wheel of Dharma in a variety of ways. Through the power of mind, may I also participate in the boundless expression of their melodious speech. In a single instant, may I engage in all future aeons which will be experienced. In just a split second, may I take part in any of all these aeons of the 3 times. In the space of a single moment, may I behold all lions among men of the past, present, and future. May I continually engage in their field of experience to the power of illusion-like spiritual liberation. The cluster of galaxies of past, present, and future have all been established atop a single particle. Accordingly, in all directions, without exception, may I take part in the pure realms of the victors. The lanterns of the world, who have yet to come, with all by stages become fully enlightened, turn the wheel of the Dharma and demonstrate the state beyond suffering, ultimate peace. May I be in the presence of all those protectors. By the virtue of the powers of miraculous swiftness, the powers of manifold approaches of the yana, the powers of practice endowed with all qualities, the powers of omnipresent loving kindness, the powers of perfectly virtuous goodness, the powers of unbounded timeless wisdom, the power of knowledge, means, and deep meditation, may I truly achieve the many powers of awakening. May I completely purify the powers of karma, fully defeat the powers of afflictions, utterly disable the powers of the maras, and bring the power of excellent conduct to perfection. May I totally purify oceans of realms, entirely liberate oceans of beings, clearly behold oceans of Dharma, wholly integrate oceans of wisdom, patently clarify oceans of conduct, perfectly fulfill oceans of aspirations, honor oceans of Buddha with my offerings, and practice tirelessly during oceans of eons. Once I have awakened and attained Buddhahood by means of the practice of excellent conduct, may I fulfill all special wishes of enlightened conduct, expressed by victorious ones of the past, present, and future. The eldest son of the victorious ones is known as Samantabadhra, the all-excellent. In order to equal his masterful skill, I perfectly dedicate all forms of merit. May I be comparable to Samantabadhra, his utterly pure body, speech, and mind, his totally pure conduct, perfectly pure realms, and superior skill in dedicating merit. So as to completely achieve excellent goodness, I will carry out Manjusri's aspiration prayers. Continuing tirelessly throughout future eons, I will accomplish every last one of his activities. May my actions be free of limitations, and my qualities also be without bounds. May I remain engaged in activities beyond measure, and may I come to know all of their manifestations. They are countless beings, as limitless as the very confines of the endless sky. Whatever their karma and afflictions may be, may my wishing prayer encompass them all. We may embellish the infinite realms of the 10 directions with precious gems and present them to the victorious ones. We may offer the finest pleasures of God and humans during as many aeons as there are atoms in the universe. Even so, paramount indeed is the exceptional merit of those of us who have heard this king of dedications, are truly determined to pursue supreme enlightenment and give rise to genuine faith, be it for just a moment. Oh, Trinlay Rinpoche is missing a sentence in his translation. So, let's go continue. Those who practice this prayer of excellent conduct will turn away from rebirth in the lower realms, sever all ties of unwholesome companions, and promptly behold Amitabha, infinite light. They will be perfectly comfortable and lead happy lives. In this lifetime as well, comfort and happiness will reign. Without delay, they will become similar in every way to Samantabhadra, the all-excellent one. If this prayer of excellent conduct is recited by those who have committed, by reason of ignorance, the 5 most negative acts of direct consequence, these all will be quickly and thoroughly purified. Practitioners will have wisdom, the shapeless physique, excellent science, a noble family, and a fine complexion. The many maras and heretics will be powerless against them, and they will be honored throughout the 3 worlds. They will go quickly before the great Bodhi tree and settle here for the benefit of sentient beings. As awakened Buddhas, they will turn the wheel of Dharma, prevailing against all of the Mara of their legions. The Buddhas alone fathom the full karmic fruition for those who take this prayer of excellent activity to heart by expounding it or reading and reciting it. Have no doubt, the outcome is supreme awakening. May I train by emulating the examples of Manjushri, with his momentous knowledge and great courage, and Samantabhadra, whose qualities are identical like them, I perfectly dedicate all forms of merit. For the sake of the practice of excellent conduct, I completely dedicate all my roots of goodness, by means of those dedications praised as supreme by the victorious ones of the past, present, and future. When the time has come for me to die, and all my fails, now purified, disappear, may I directly behold Amitabha, infinite light, and proceed with certainty to the realm of joy. Once there, may these and all other prayers, without a single exception, become manifest. May I perfectly fulfill each and every one, helping beings for as long as the universe exists. May I be reborn in a supremely beautiful lotus in the excellent, joyous mandala of the Buddhas. There may I obtain my prophetic revelation directly from Amitabha, the victorious one. Once the prophecy has been fully achieved, may I serve the beings of the 10 directions in a number of ways through the power of mind of many hundreds times millions of emanations. By whatever small merit I may have gathered by practicing this prayer of excellent activity, may the meritorious aspiration of sentient beings all be accomplished in the space of one instant. By virtue of the boundless, generous merit gained by fully dedicating excellent conduct, may all beings engulfed in the great river of suffering attain Buddha Amitabha's most excellent domain. May these sovereign aspiration prayers bring about that which is most excellent and sublime, and may the benefit of beings infinite in number, and may they benefit all beings infinite in number. May the scripture adorned by Samantabhadra be accomplished, and may the entire space of the unfortunate realms become empty. So, Now Rinpoche wants to have a look to the translation in the sutra itself by Patrick Carré in French that we don't have and that we don't have in English. So it's not going to be able to instantly translate it, so just listen to the French. Yeah, so here Rinpoche is discussing the names used in French. So we have Deshin Shepa, Dewa Shepa, translated to the Death Gone One or the Well Gone One in French. So Pachikar is doing some neologism. So he's trying to translate as many terms as the Tibetan actually did when they translated from Sanskrit. So sometimes in French it may sound a bit weird, but he's really trying to bring the meaning. So, now you've heard the prayer twice, so you will have double merits. So that was the second French translation. So you can also look for other English translation and compare them. There are also other translation, but now we're gonna make it easy. There is another one by Shama Rinpoche, which is also a bit different. But it's the same translation as the first one we read. They say. So anyway, you can look at it. It's always interesting to compare different translations. It always helps to get a more precise understanding, to make it finer. So here for that course, Rinpoche is going to use a commentary written by Taranatha, the master Taranatha. A few years ago, Rinpoche was the translator of Shama Rinpoche, first Shama Rinpoche, and he actually taught that text during a winter. the winter of year 2009, probably the time we were in New York. And a few disciples had requested Shamara Rinpoche to explain that text, and he gave quite a fast and easy explanation that I translated that time. And he recommended to use Taranata's commentary. So that's why now I use that commentary. Of course, there are other ones as well. So that commentary exists only in Tibetan language. So I'm going to use it in order to explain and make clearer the stanzas we just read. So as it's planned in the timetable, we're going to have a short break. I'm sorry, I took 8 of your minutes. So we're going to have a break now, and we'll see again at 11:30 or at 11:40. So you're going to get half an hour. And we will get into the text.
Travar Church Dungar Mebe Dewa Tamba Mindra Var Church Nirin Chadan Dan Trave Danyom Chembo La Nebar Church. Je vous remercie.
So thank you everyone. So this morning we situated the text and we saw that the King of Aspiration prayers was extracted from the Gyalwa Sutra, that is more than a quarter of Avatamsaka Sutra, so it's a very important part. So Gyalwa Sutra comes from Avatamsaka Sutra. So here our prayer is in the final part of Gyalwa Sutra. So it's the stanzas of that last chapter. So in order to understand the text properly, it's important to know, to situate it in the Buddha's teaching in general. So as well as the other Royal Sutras, so we have that set of 5 Royal Sutras. So those texts become to the greater vehicle, the so-called Mahayana. So according to Mahayana, we can distinguish or differentiate different approaches or different vehicles. What we call vehicle in Sanskrit, it's yana. So there is the hearer's vehicle, the solitary Buddha vehicle, and the bodhisattva vehicle. So the Shravaka yana, the Shravaka yana, Pratika Buddha, and Bodhisattva yana. So the Mahayana is exactly the same as the Bodhisattva yana. And sometimes we put together the Shravakayana and Pratyekayana as one vehicle, the so-called Shravaka vehicle, Shravakayana, or the hearer's vehicle, or hearer's yana. There is also another esoterical approach in the greater vehicle. So it's the Bodhisattva yana, but with esoterical approach. In that branch, we use a bit different practices. For example, the Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle, in Tibetan is called Rigdzingitagpa, or in Sanskrit the Vidyadhara. Rigpa in Tibetan, Vidyadhara, Rigpa. The vehicle of Vidyadharas. So those different approaches really show the diversity of Buddha's teaching, the vastness, the deepness of its teaching. And also it shows the story of Buddha's teaching from its time until nowadays. The flourishing of its teaching, the various understanding through different times and ages. So those different approaches can be distinguished. How can they be distinguished? How do we differentiate them? Are they all a result of different schism? How is it? So first of all, so it's quite the opposite than what we can think in the West. We are very familiar with schisms, conflicts in religion through our history, right? And a remarkable thing in Buddhism is that those different approaches that result in different lineages, traditions, don't come from schisms, don't come from conflicts. They are the result of conflict inside Buddhism. So nowadays we have different Buddhist traditions, different schools of thought, and they mutually recognize and respect each other. Of course, there are specificities. Maybe some think that the others' understanding of Buddha's teaching is not complete or full. Some think that other approaches were diluted or kind of adapted to some periods of time. Of course, we can find a few opinions, but in general, those different approaches are considered authentic, genuine. So whatever approach of Buddhism is, there is really no need to develop discrimination or pride, contempt to those different Buddhist approaches. So fundamentally, there is no difference. Whatever school of thought or vehicle, there is no fundamental difference. So here, when we talk about vehicle, we're not talking about a church or an institution. Here, it's precisely about a progression of understanding. So those vehicles can be forced by an institution. How are they determined? They are determined by the individual itself, by his own comprehension, by their own comprehension. So if we are Buddhists, it's not about thinking you are Buddhist or in identifying oneself as a Buddhist. Of course, in general, the definition and what characterizes a Buddhist is the fact of taking refuge in the three jewels, accepting the three jewels as a refuge, and wanting to follow Buddha's teaching, wanting to adopt a real respect towards Buddhism and choosing it as its spiritual path, its personal religion. This is what generally would make you a Buddhist, like conventionally. But in real, to be a Buddhist is whether or not we progress on the on the path to enlightenment. Do we really progress or not on the path to enlightenment? Because that's the goal of Buddha's practice and teaching, and it really depends of one's own maturity, one's own level of understanding, and your ability to put into practice, to apply the teaching to your own mind stream, to your own personal development. So, to say it briefly, it depends to what we are attached to, our life goal, our given life goal. For example, there is a very important teaching, especially transmitted in Sakya lineage in Tibet, which is the fact of liberating oneself from the four attachments. The first one is attachment to this life, this very life. So whether we are Buddhist or not, we are all very attached to this life. We are all concerned about this life. All what we do is for this life, for our own immediate comfort. We have a way to interact with our environment and other people. We interact with them through trying to either appropriate, to grasp something, or reject it. So what we want to get is comfort, and anything that, according to our ordinary understanding, is a source of comfort, such as wealth, honors, comfort, and then we try to avoid the opposite, meaning anything that is painful, distressing, source of difficulty, and that can be, for example, poverty, loss, and so on. I'm sure you've heard that teaching about the 8 worldly concerns of Karmapa. If we look around us, what are we mostly concerned about? It's mostly trying to gain things and avoid loss, trying to gain fame and avoid criticism, trying to be appreciated and avoid the opposite, and looking for pleasure and avoiding pain. These are what really preoccupy us as ordinary beings. So when we talk about being attached to this life, this is having restrained, a shortened perception of things, focalizing on immediate experience. We have a kind of memory of our past from our birth to right now. Maybe it's not so clear for everyone, it may be vague. Sometimes when we look back in the past, we wonder if we have really lived that situation or not, or did we dream it? And then we have that experience of the present moment, and we project ourselves to the future. And what we are concerned about is those 8 worldly concerns. That feeling, we are looking for that pleasant feeling, and we are trying to avoid painful feelings. I'm not saying that to tell you that Dharma says reject pleasant things or reject pleasant feelings. It's not about that. But Buddhism has a very deep reflection about our reality that is ours. And that teaching is the common basis of all Buddhist approaches. All the Buddhist approaches that we just cited, all the different yanas or vehicles. So it's about the teaching about the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha gave. So first, the Buddha gave the teaching of the first Noble Truth, the truth of dukkha, translated as suffering. So we can't say it's just suffering. It's also unwellness, not feeling well, but it also includes pleasant feeling and also neutral feelings. So all those forms of feelings are characterized by Buddha as insatisfaction or suffering. Of course, pain is unsatisfying and unpleasant because by definition it's something, when it's there, we directly want to get rid of it. But also pleasant feelings, even when we feel it, we don't want to get rid of it, we don't want it to stop, but the pleasant feeling leaves us. It passes, it doesn't last. And in that way, the pleasant feeling is naturally disappointing. It's a source of disappointment. We can't rely on it. And then we have the feeling that is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And it's not a source of refuge either. It's just the very condition so that pleasant and unpleasant feelings can manifest. So the inner conditioning that makes that we feel pleasant or unpleasant feelings is present. So here, Buddha's teaching is about understanding our present situation first as beings in the samsara, as beings in conditioned existence, understanding what it is about, and trying to see precisely the structure of that. How come that this is my situation? And if we are able to see why our situation is the way it is, therefore we can start to consider a solution. We can start to consider how to get rid of it, how to liberate from it. That is the meaning of those words attributed to Asvachit, one of the 5 disciples of the Buddha. When he was questioned by Shariputra, what he answered was what depends from causes was explained, and he also explained cessation, the big shamatha. The great yogi has explained cessation. So here it means that what Buddha revealed, what he wants us to recognize, is not a denial of reality. It's just understanding reality as it is, how it functions. There is really the emphasis on observing reality in the most possible authentic, genuine way, free of confusion, free of bias, free of all those mistaken way of seeing. So it's not about getting attached to a myth or a belief that suffering is this and we should believe in it. It's not about that. It's through observation, observing Buddha and its disciples is an observation that we have to do by ourselves. It's not about believing in something like, okay, I agree with that, I believe. It's not about that. This is really important to understand what Buddha means by practicing to enlightenment. This is repeated very often, especially that quote when the Buddha says, "Oh, monk, in the same way as you would check gold, if gold is pure or not, analyze what I said, whether it's true or not." So Buddha doesn't say, "Oh, this teaching is true because I said it." He doesn't say that. Very often we have that kind of concept in religious approaches. The one that said it is irreproachable, he's perfect, so what he says is perfect, and we have to believe in the authenticity of the source of the teaching, and therefore the teaching couldn't be put into question. And actually in Buddhism we have the reverse approach, the opposite approach. We don't know the Buddha. We can't at first say he's authentic or special. First, we can just listen to his teaching. We must understand properly the teaching. And not only that, we need to then analyze it, observe by ourselves, observe what is presented in the teaching. And then slowly through logic, deduction, by seeing ourselves the authenticity and the truth in the teaching, then we can conclude, oh, this is authentic and Buddha was really enlightened, reliable, and genuine. The fact that Buddha is genuine or not depends on his teaching. Because his teaching is genuine and reliable, then we can say the Buddha is reliable. So this is an important point to understand. And what I'm trying to share here is that understanding of dukkha and its origin. And all the Buddhist vehicles, all Buddhist approaches try to explain that, try to get to the beyond of suffering. Because somehow if we understand causes of conditions of suffering, and what is said here in Buddhism that is very important, which is cause, the suffering causes and condition are, to use a specific word, adventist, like fake. Loborwa in Tibetan. Adventitious, like fake, which means that unsatisfaction doesn't really constitute reality. Fundamentally, reality is free of pain or suffering. It's because of ignorance the lack of understanding of reality that it appears like that. So the origin of suffering is not truly established. It's not forced or made by a superior entity. It doesn't appear from nothing. And we can precisely discriminate its causes and conditions, actually. This is what Buddha wants to bring us to. The causes and conditions of suffering are, according to Buddhism, the fundamental ignorance. And that ignorance manifests for us in our daily life through ego's cherishing, I cherishing. And because of that attachment to I, manifests all the afflictive or disturbing emotions, afflictive state of mind, all these different words to translate the Sanskrit word kleshas, which means different state of mind or mental factors. It can also be called mental factors, meaning care, desire, fundamentally confusion, which the most subtle aspect is ignorance. And then, of course, we have desire, attachment, anger, and hatred. So those three basic poisons are called in Sanskrit moha, timuk, dechak, which is raga in Sanskrit, and shedang for anger and hatred. And I don't remember the Sanskrit for that. But shedang means like hostile, rejecting. And this brings us to hatred, all kind of angers. So all those three fundamental poisons give birth to 84,000 kind of afflictions according to sutras. There is a large variety. For example, in Abhidharma, there is a list of the so-called 6 afflictions, 6 root affliction, and there are 20 subsidiary affliction. But whatever this affliction, without going into too much details, will themselves determine our volition, what we want. These actions by nature express our intentions, what we want, what we desire. And that movement, that volition is expressed by thought first. Intentions is our thought. The way you think, the way we conceptualize, the way we see things. And that thought will condition our speech, our words, and our actions. And those thoughts, those words, those actions determine our future, our becoming, what we are and what we will become. And in that way, what is called in Sanskrit karman, translated in French as karma, or English, meaning the action, what is done. So it implies the action and its result, its consequence. So all of that is fake. adventitious. So all that display full of suffering is the consequence of ignorance. So here we can see it's not something we can't avoid. It's not fatality. In France, I've heard people thinking the Indian thought is fatalist. When we talk about karma, it's fatality. But when we look in detail, the teaching of karma says that because reality is adventitious, there is no fatality. It's not something we can't escape from. So all the Buddhist teaching is about that. And I think even in general, all religions propose a kind of goal, possibility to reach a better situation, better conditions, happier. For example, in theistic religions, there is paradise. That is the wish of the practitioner. He wants to be reborn in paradise, to remain in happiness, in joy. So what is paradise? In their descriptions, we can see a lot of differences. Meaning we can see a kind of conditioning here. They think that paradise, for example, in some descriptions, it said we are always young, there is no water, it's nectar flowing, everything is sweet, delicious. When we see a description, we see all those things and they are a bit outdated. It sounds like our modern world is closer to that paradise than the description of that paradise that are a little bit old. But it's all like conditions. And what is conditioned, all what is conditioned is impermanent according to Buddhism. And what is impermanent is linked to suffering. All that is impermanent is always disappointing because we can't rely on it. It's always changing according to Buddhism. So in that way, there can't be real pleasure out of it. So in Buddhism, enlightenment is not a place or a paradise, something artificial, created, produced, that can be described with nectar, different kind of goddess who would live there, where we would eat wonderful fruits and sleep all the time. Enlightenment is not that kind of place. Of course, we have things that look like paradises. For example, descriptions of Sukhavati, the Wachen, the Pure Land of Buddha Amitabha. Here, it's not about the luxury, it's about like an ideal situation. But it's also a conditioned state. First, Buddha Amitabha's Pure Land is a kind of planet or a place that is conditioned. But it manifests through Buddha Amitabha's kindness, and it's a proper place to reach enlightenment. So it's not a goal, the final goal. It's just a mean. It's Buddha Amitabha's kindness, thanks to which we can escape the suffering or the uncertainty of all conditioned existences. It's a mean that we can used to accomplish enlightenment, but it's not a final goal in Buddha's teaching. So all those different approaches, as I was saying, have as an objective, as a goal, the beyond suffering, understanding what is suffering and going beyond suffering. So in the beginning, we try to understand what is suffering. If we really understand the disappointing nature of existence that is conditioned by our ignorance, our karma, our afflictions, that understanding will bring us to lose interest to that life. So we will lose attachment to that life because we lose interest in that life. Because why should we get attached to potential disappointment? We are so attached attached to this because we don't see the disappointment. But if we see the disappointment, logically we won't have so much interest for that conditioned existence. And there, logically or naturally, we will slowly start to go to the path to enlightenment, because it's not only this life that is important for us. Here's another point, another very important point. What we call in Tibetan Le Gyum De. Le means karma, Gyu means cause, and De means fruition or result. So we understand here the causes and effects of our actions. That understanding is really important here. Because it's a basis, a foundation for ethics, for discipline in Buddhism. In general, Buddhist practice can be summed up in three fields of studying or training. The first one is discipline, then we have contemplation, and then discrimination, discernment. So Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna in Sanskrit. The three trainings, Trisiksha, the three trainings, the three learnings. So the first one, that is the basis of entering the Buddhist practice, is discipline, adopting discipline, ethics. So this is based on the understanding of causality, meaning that we want pleasure, we want to avoid pain or suffering, and we understand that unpleasant things or pleasant things have causes, and those causes are inside us. Usually we always look outside. We are always focused on, oh, if I can take from my neighbor, I will be richer. If I can have this for me, I will get benefit from it. So everything is based on our afflictions. And as far as we rely on our afflictions, the very nature of those kleshas, of those afflictions, is pain, is suffering. For example, if hatred rises within us, and in a way we take refuge in hatred, we think hatred is protecting us. It's a kind of automatism. We justify ourselves. We react this way. We think it's justified. It's a kind of survival protection, survival mechanism that we relate to. But the nature of hatred is harming us by definition. It's like a poison for us. It harms us. The more we eat it, the more we consume it, the more we suffer. It's very simple to observe that. Those who observe that can really see how negative it is. As long as it's here, our mind is disturbed. There's no happiness, no choice, and whatever we do with hatred destroys us. For example, there is a sutra in the Theravada tradition that explains the 7 defects of hatred taught by the Buddha. As from the moment hatred manifests, we all want to be pretty beautiful, but we are all ugly. We all want comfort, but from the moment when hatred is there, everything is uncomfortable, and we are uncomfortable. We all want to be respected, but from the moment when hatred is there, no one sees us. Everyone has despise for us. We all want to do good things, do good actions, but from the moment hatred is there, risk is there, and all the things we want to keep can be lost. Then retribution. From the moment we are angry, we have hatred, everyone wants to avoid us. Even those who love us, run away from us. Those who were happy to be with us before don't want to stay with us. They don't want to accompany us. And finally, we want to have a nice rebirth, but because of hatred, we get a non-pleasant rebirth. So those are the 7 shortcomings or defects of hatred as taught by the Buddha. So we can observe here its agitated, disturbed nature, painful nature. So here, why do we blindly follow hatred? Why do we keep it alive? Because we don't understand its consequences. We don't understand what we call legium de actions, causes and its effects. We don't understand that. And that lack of understanding works the same with desire and attachment. We are attached to things, but by nature it's disturbing. The moment we start to want something, we are unsatisfied. There is always pain in there, and especially the most negative is ignorance, meaning moha, confusion, in its most gross state. Here it refers to the attachment to I and the absence of discernment, believing in our own fiction. And this is the source of all afflictions, all other disturbing emotions. So once one affliction is there, all other afflictions can also be there. So once one affliction disappears, is cleared away, the other one can also disappear. They keep alive each other, basically. So the first detachment that brings us to the Dharma path is understanding that causality, that link between our thoughts and our becoming. When we understand that, we understand that the real well-being is not about outside pursuit, meaning trying to get all the fame, wealth, glory and all. It's about developing inner understanding, about clearing away all those afflictions and following discipline, ethics. So discipline is in Buddhism is not limited to morality, meaning something limited to a cultural situation, cultural habits. Here it's about observing causality between our thoughts, our actions, and our becoming. So here the Buddha gave a certain amount of rules, conduct rule, which are expressed in the 10 non-virtuous actions that we try to avoid, meaning the 3 actions of the body: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Of course, those actions are committed only through afflictions. They only express our afflictions, desire, hatred. Also, we have, in the same way, the 4 negative actions of speech: lie, divisive speech, harmful speech, and useless speech. And then we have the 3 negative action of thoughts. So one is malice, covetousness, and wrong views. Or lust. So whatever my behavior is, here wrong view means to deny reality. So 3 body, 4 speech, and 3 of mind. So here it's not just about believing, just to believe, or just, oh yeah, that's right, so I agree with that. It's really about understanding the causality of actions, how it works. And through that understanding, we will consider this very life differently, because we will understand that our behavior defines who we are and who we will become in a near or further away future. So it's more important for us to behave well, to have a good conduct now, than following a fiction or fake things, like the fiction of the 8 worldly dharmas. So this is a very fundamental, basic approach when we enter any spirituality, basically, and especially here in Dharma. Delashina Chöpamin in Tibetan. in the abandon of the four attachment, it's said that if we are attached to that life, we are not a practitioner, meaning we are not really engaged on the way. So whether we are not Buddhists, independently from identifying as a Buddhist, it's about whether we follow discipline or not. What is for us, if for us the most important is wealth, fame, power, which is a kind of immediate satisfaction. Negative action bring immediate satisfaction, but they don't really bring real wellness because it's momentaneous. Temporarily it's here, but in the future it's gonna bring more suffering because momentaneously we lied, we cheated and all, we got temporary happiness, but in the future it's gonna bring more pain. So that trust in causality, that disinterest, that losing of interest to that life only is the first approach that constitutes somehow the basis of the entering to the practice path. Then we have, time is running really fast. So I will talk about the other points tomorrow to help you better. Because I think what is important here is not just having a knowledge, a high knowledge of Dharma. It's about understanding why Dharma is important for oneself. And here, the goal of studying and listening to Dharma is to understand how to practice. Here we come to study teachings. We hear lots of theory, but we need to know how to do it in practice, in real. Those two are not different or separate. Those two are inseparable. Especially the more you understand the teaching, the more you know how to practice. Or then you will ask me lots of questions like, should I practice Shinye? Should I practice Chenrezig? Should I practice the 35 Buddha practice? Or now that we've been studying the Sutra of Aspirations prayer, should I practice that? Actually, practice is not about sitting for 10 minutes a day and reciting a text, or just practicing the way we practice yoga for the body awareness, then reciting something for the mind awareness. It's not about that. It's the whole way we approach life, death, at any moment. Dharma is something that has to inhabit us at any moment of life. And it starts with discipline, ethical discipline. Meaning the way we interact with others in our daily life, in our daily endeavors. If we're not able to be beneficial to others, at least we have to avoid being harmful for others. That is the meaning of discipline. It's the way that is not harming. It's not harming for us and it's not harming for others. It's not about sacrificing, meaning I'm not harming others, so I'm sacrificing myself. Here, to not harm others means also to not harm oneself. So I'm going to leave it here for this morning. And we will go on at this point in the afternoon, and you will get space, opportunity to ask questions about the point we already studied. Thank you for your attention. Please join me in the dedication of the merits.